Hello and welcome to Mime Radio. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin. How you doing, Karen?
Pretty good.
Chicago, the Windy City, and I'm in the Northwest in Ashland, Oregon. Let me introduce the man behind the curtain, the man who pulls the levers, the man that pushes the buttons, the man that controls our destiny, Michael Diaz.
Hello, Michael.
Hi.
How's Ohio today?
Ohio is sunny and beautiful and a little chilly. It's pretty great.
Well, it's not going to be chilly today for our interview, but today we have some exciting guests. I'm very enthusiastic about this. We have Carrie Margolis and Tony Brown from the Adaptors Theater Company. And let me tell you something about them. The Adaptors, co-founders, artistic directors of the award-winning Adaptors Company, Carrie Margolis and Tony Brown, have been committed to the creation of original theater and the exploration of the actor's craft for 4 decades. They have created 17 evening-length productions touring throughout the United States and internationally. Margolis writes and directs. Brown creates original compositions and multimedia. Both artists often perform. Carrie Margolis. Over the last 38 years, Carrie has developed an in-depth approach to theater training and creation, the Margolis method, merging the skills of the actor, director, and playwright. She is master teacher at the Margolis Method Center International, located in Highland Lake, New York. Carrie travels extensively with her international workshops and is a keynote speaker, published playwright, and author. Tony Brown. Tony has received numerous accolades for his performances and has created sound scores for commercials and multimedia for performance companies. Their work has been recognized with 6 National Endowment for the Arts fellowships, a Bessie New York Performance Award, a Pew TCG National Artist Fellowship, multiple McKnight and Bush Foundation fellowships, and a Creative Capital National Artist Fellowship, among other awards. So, are we ready? Let's welcome Carrie Margolis and Tony Brown of the Adaptors.
Yeah, hey. Welcome, Carrie.
They are.
Cool.
And I understand you're in a casino, an old casino here in New York State, correct?
Yeah, we're in the Delaware Valley at the bottom of the Catskill Mountains. So,
and how far away is that from New York City?
90 miles.
90 miles, close. Wow.
Yeah, 90 miles west of the city.
And you have your studios in the basement, and you live upstairs.
Yeah, so
that's right. If you want to call it living, it's more like we work continuously.
Yeah,
it's like a family that lives above the family store, right?
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the studio is what was the casino area, and then there's a loft space upstairs, which you are all welcome to today.
Yeah.
We should have like a little link to a video tour to see the space and the outdoors and stuff. That would be pretty cool.
That's
For
beautiful.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, the Adaptors. I first knew of the Adaptors probably, I want to say the early 80s or the 80s, most likely. And I saw a production called Audubon, which was fantastic, and which is in my brain to this day. So we're really excited to delve into you two and to ask more about your lives and your work and so forth. So Karen, why don't you ask them the first question?
Okay, yeah. So I was just going to say my memories is of, as I told you, is of this piece about this giant bed and 8 people or more climbing all over this bed, the bed experiment, as you call it.
Yeah.
So you perform, both of you, and also have an ensemble that performs with you. And I am very curious about that moment right before the show starts. What is the thing that goes through your mind right before you step on the stage? What is your preparation, and maybe how does it different? Either one of you can tell me, like, sort of, what's that moment before for you?
Tell you, it's it really happens like right an hour before. That's where you really have to get yourself physically ready. And we do a workout before the show and get ourselves like mentally and physically ready. And then usually by time right before the show, you're kind of rushing around making sure all the props are in place.
Are you doing a workout that's connected to that performance, or are you doing work that's
really we do a big ritual with the company before a performance. So the performance is at 8 o'clock. We're in the theater no later than noon, and so we're really rigorous that way. But let me just tell you how it really is with Tony and performing. Okay, so I stopped performing with the company in the 90s because I really felt like the actors deserved a director who was not also in the shows, right? Tony's continued performing, and we've created two works featured around his characters. But this is Tony, like brilliant on stage. He comes running off stage, and it's like, what scene is next? It's like, what? And it's like, this man has literally reached back and ripped a jacket right off of his back. And so you have to be there to receive him.
You mean like tore it apart, or just?
Yeah, tore it apart. He tore it apart. He comes off stage. He's so in his character. He comes off stage. You have to like switch him around.
I can't figure out where the Velcro is.
Velcro him up, turn him around, and then you go, cafe scene, go. And it's like, throw the man back out on stage, and he's brilliant. So
I know, Tony, you do a lot of multimedia and technical things. Is that some of that's in your head? I mean, do you help prepare the technology for the show, like lighting or sound or whatever? Are you able to get rid of that? Or are you still like, are you messing with that all the way up to this point of entering the stage?
My favorite part of performing is the very first show, usually the first or second show. Then after that, I hear every little, if the sound came on a split second late, or all of a sudden I can be thrown off. But the very first show, I just enjoy it but after that, I am listening for, all the technology, or the light didn't come on, or, I get really rattled really easily after that.
And we're old fashioned in this respect. We generally don't travel with a stage manager who calls cues.
Yeah.
So the lighting person is an actor in the show, in the sense that the lighting person knows the show intimately. The sound person knows the show intimately. And even the technical side of the show is like raising a curtain is like, we look at a curtain opening or closing like a puppet, you know what I mean? Manipulating.
Yeah.
No one calling cues.
Right.
I think we were all like that, because I lit my own shows. I called the cues. I had one experience in Turkey and Istanbul. I was performing in a festival, and I'm like Tony. I'm always aware of everything that's going on. I can see a fly on the floor, and the guy made the wrong lighting cue. The guy up in the booth, this Turkish guy, because it was in Istanbul, and so I stopped the show. Actually, I said, "Excuse me," and I walked off. It was a solo show. I walked off stage. I went up to the booth and I said, "Look, you have to do it at this point." It was a music cue or something. I came back down. It was a big proscenium hall, and I started performing, and the guy made the same mistake. So I said, "Excuse me," and I went up and I came back. But the funny thing was, at the end of the show, the audience was totally upset, but not at me. They were upset at the guy in the booth, so.
Well, it's so interesting because we do a lot of residency work at universities, and we do a lot of devising. So we'll go into a university and create original shows with theater programs. And it's very, very interesting because right now, all the university programs, train the actors to really follow the stage manager and the cues and whatever. And so it's always so interesting when we come in and we say, you're bringing us in to create something and to give the students a different kind of experience than they normally have. Let us show them that there's a different way that you can, go and make a show work, but it doesn't fit into the logistics of theater.
You probably never had a guy. Once I was at a college back in the 70s on tour, and the light, it was another lighting thing, and we said, I think we need to do another rehearsal for the next evening show. And the guy got so upset, he took a swing at my partner. He tried to punch him. And this was actually at a kind of a religious school, so it was totally out of character. But that's so old school.
I think sometimes when you have those kinds of disasters, though, it kind of makes the show a totally different thing. So to be able to train people to be aware of everything and to make that a part of the performance is really a gift.
Yeah.
I remember one time a guy, the lighting guy at a college, went out to the pub in the student union at intermission, and he came back drunk. And he couldn't continue. So I mean,
wow.
Anyway, how do you guys perceive the audience before a show? Do you guys peek at them? Do you ignore them? Who is that audience? Who is that? What is that force out there that's witnessing what you're going to do? How do you perceive that?
That totally freaks me out. If I look out and see anyone beforehand, it just throws me off my game. I have to not know that there's anyone that I know out there or anything.
How do you perceive that force, though? I mean, you don't look, but what do they mean to you? That energy out there.
Well, everything. So starting from the training, right? So the thing is, our ensemble of actors, training is a part of our life, right? And that we are always working together. From the very, very first moment of training, it's about the audience. And so everything about when we're training our actor instrument is learning specifically how to be 100% inside, committed to our character, but at the same time outside, sitting in an audience seat. And so we learn to have this double experience. So everything is about the audience. Even when we're in the studio, we're improvising, it's always in relationship to the perspective of the audience. So it's everything to us, everything. And it's like we really know and acknowledge and embrace how every audience is so completely different and how dangerous it is to get on stage with the expectation of last night's audience. You know, they were a silent audience or a loud audience. It's like you just cannot take that with you, you know.
So are you when you're talking about the relationship to the audience, are you talking about how as an actor you are able to be here but also perceiving from the point of view of the audience, or
yes,
are you really trying to just connect to them?
From the point of view of the audience, that's how we connect. Because so an actor might be on stage and it's like their internal timing tells them it's time to go. But we're trained to look at our instinct in relationship to what the audience needs, because maybe the audience needs us to hold back a little bit longer, or maybe we feel like we need to hold back longer, but for the audience, it's perceived as self-indulgent moment and we're taking too long. So there's this constant sense of conversation between.
So the audience is like another actor on stage with you. I mean, in a sense, it's part of the ensemble, correct?
Yeah, they are definitely.
How does that work when you have a group of what's the largest number of people in the Adaptors? That group of people, and maybe their timing and the audience timing. How do you train and connect to your fellow actors so that you're in tune with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've done shows with as many as 40 performers, but 16 was like our largest core ensemble that we toured with. And that's why we're saying training is a big part of what we do. And so it's not about auditioning and then training an actor in the moment for a show. It's like so much of our training is about our instrument, so that when we come together to make a piece of theater, we're already bringing that consciousness with us. And so the other thing that we train to do is every acting beat that I have has to not only be justified in myself, but has to inspire and create the need and the dramatic timing for the next actor on stage. So everyone in the ensemble is creating and justifying and supporting the needs of everybody else and taking into perspective the audience, you know.
That demands a lot of generosity in performers and a lot of letting go of ego in the spotlight that a lot of actors need.
Right.
Yeah, but it's, you know, when you really feel what it is to be supported and to support, it's addicting.
Yes.
And so
Yeah,
like,
it's a trance. It's a
ego and self-indulgence plays a really small, if non-existent part in the company and in rehearsals, and we never lose time like arguing or fighting over something. It's like how we communicate and how we create, and all of those things are so rich. It's addicting.
Yeah, it's like, I call it being in the river. You know, you're a group in the river, in the current, with all the current's dynamics, you know, the different places the water goes. But as a group, you have to be in that current together and respond to survive. You can't jump off the boat, or you can't, or you'll drown, right? So everybody has to. This is a question for Tony. So Tony, how'd you get started in all this? Let's talk to us about where this chrysalis began for you.
Yeah, well, it's kind of started in Los Angeles, and just, you know, I was taking theater classes, and then one day there was this man named Al Marotta who was teaching a mime class, and I took it, and I was going, oh my God, I can't believe this, and I just really became fascinated by it.
What year would that have been? About what period of time?
Then probably around 1969 or 70.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What style of mime was it?
It was a pantomime style.
Yeah.
And he was working with a company in Los Angeles, Richmond Shepherd Company.
Richmond Shepherd, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Richmond Shepherd's ensemble, but he didn't tell us that. He just came in and just didn't give us any background, just started teaching the class. And actually when I first met him, he was just taking, I was in a modern dance class, and he just happened to be taking the modern dance class, and he finished off doing this really mimetic piece at the end of the season of that class, and then he announced that he was going to be teaching a mime class at the end of that, and I'm going, oh my God, I got to take that.
Yeah. Didn't you both study with DeCrew?
Yeah, we did, and that was that was before. Then from LA, I went to study with DeCrew.
So you went right from LA to DeCrew, like you did a little college, a little theater studies, and then you went to DeCrew.
Yeah, and I became involved in the LA mime scene. I worked with Tommy McLaughlin. He was a mime.
Yeah.
And there was a whole group of mimes who would meet every Tuesday night, called the LA Mime Ensemble or something, and we would just do improvisations, and Tommy would kind of run that. All the big mimes from LA would show up at Tommy's house, and I was part of that crowd. And
yeah, it's interesting how so many mimes are from LA, like Keith Berger. I'm from that region. I told you I grew up in Oxnard, right north. You know, there's a lot. Robert Shields, came out of LA. There are a lot of interesting. I think there's something to do with the ocean and the space and the mountain ranges affects our sense of space, being from the West Coast.
Carrie, where are you from, Carrie?
I'm a Brooklyn girl.
Uh-huh. And how did you get started?
I got started by staging huge productions on 104th Street between L&M and Brooklyn. So there was 100 kids that lived on this one street, and it started like with West Side Story, and I would literally put on huge productions with the kids there. So
street, they say in the street, outdoors,
like outdoors, and it would be, it was like site-specific devising.
Wow, cool.
Wait, how old were you then?
Like 9.
Yeah.
10, 12. Like at one point, my dad was like, "I'll buy you the album of West Side Story if you just stop organizing all this stuff in the streets," And
so you were a director from birth.
Yeah, I do like carnivals. I create carnivals in the driveway, and
well, it's interesting. It's like maybe you were influenced by the New York theater scene, but maybe Tony, you were influenced by Disney or cartoons, or all that goes into the pot. Yeah.
Like I came at it from. I didn't go to college. I dropped out of high school. So I was like, studying with people. I was really about like trying to suck and steal everything I could. Right from being, and it was because I couldn't find what I was looking for in high schools at the time.
Did you know what you were looking for, or were you just kind of like, there's something out there I need to find, but I'm not sure what it is? I mean, what?
Yeah, so it's like, I knew I wanted to be an actor from like 3, but I never ever envisioned like plays or auditioning or headshots, or like, we still have never taken a headshot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I knew it was like this theater thing, but it wasn't acting like what people think of. I never had imagined that, you know? And so,
I remember that image from the Autobahn show with the old classic 50s hair dry, women's salon hair dryer.
It's still,
you're like hanging on
there
the stand. Yeah. But there's that photo of you hanging on the stand, you know, it has some sexuality to it. It's very sensual. There's a lot of like images in that. So when you say I didn't do, you know, we never do headshots, but yet that some image like that is so powerful beyond a headshot, you know.
I think I came more from like experimental things like Grotowski, and also Brecht had a big influence. So I just came from a very different perspective, but somewhere like I think it's like our sense of humor, our image, our sense of imagery and imagistic expression, and our sense of humor just so connected.
Well, the logical question is, how did you guys come together? What was that event or experience, or was it a like love at first sight, or was there a process involved in terms of your artistic and personal merging, you know?
First date, I watched her iron clothes.
You did what? Excuse me, what'd you say?
I watched her iron clothes.
I was working like as an au pair, you know, and we were in Paris, and I was doing ironing for.
Were you studying at DeCruz too?
Yeah,
Carrie?
we were both at DeCruz, and we were friends for a really long time before we became.
How long were you at DeCruz, and do you feel that that's like a really strong influence on where you ended up?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, we were there about 3 years. Certainly everything that you do is an influence, and certainly that was a huge influence in the terms of I think what really clicked in my mind was the idea of a training that was specific to the actor, that it wasn't about taking a dance class or a yoga class to get physicality. It was really about embracing that the actor has an instrument that's unique, and that sparked, you know, a lifelong research as to, well, what is the actor's instrument?
I think we have a really great experience by going right from DeCruz to Montreal, and we worked with a company called Omnibus.
Yes.
We were actually able to apply what we had learned.
That's great.
And just get into like a professional touring company, and just really, you know.
How about modern dance or any?
We took a lot of dance classes.
Yeah, but like what we would call a lot have nothing like if you were a dancer. Like,
oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I know. For me, modern dance has been an influence. Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Mime Omnibus, because that, to me, was this incredible example of the precision and the research of DeCruz, but with wonderful imagination and creativity and vision, where they could, you know, that it was grounded in that technique, but it wasn't about the technique. Which so many people who study with DeCruz, it's just showing off the technique, which is
right.
And I always thought of you guys as sort of like this, the next step after Omnibus, this sort of creativity, but with such strong training and precision.
It's the sorry.
Well, I'm just gonna say the link this for these influences like DeCruz and then the experiences with Omnibus, but that's in our youth. But now we're at that point where we need to, inspire the younger generations. You know, there's that train of experience and influence is very important.
Yeah. And it's, you know, influences are different when they're 10 years in your past or when they're, you know, 40 or 50 years in our past. Like now those are, you know, it's like, and when you're in the studio every day and you're researching and you're developing, you're in the present right now, but still our foundation, we come from this very European kind of sense of what an ensemble is, you know, that ensembles live together and they work together. And I think we've carried that heritage with us, no matter where we've gone or what we've done, and a sense of discipline.
Yes. And that the way you speak about the attention to the training and the many your students that keep returning and keep studying, that's so different than the instant gratification that so many people want. They want, let's do this quickly, and then I want to.
Yeah, we say the joke is in America, like you do, you know, a week-long workshop, and so that you can get a business card.
Yeah. Well, that's our responsibility, isn't it? Now, as I'd say, elder artists, is to generate this kind of respect for the training.
And it's harder now than what's hard now is because there's so fewer opportunities for young artists.
Isn't that the truth?
Than what we had to ask a young artist to commit years to training in the arts like this, when there's not obvious, when there's not like 50 companies that you could look up to and go, study really hard, maybe I could get in this company or that company. So what we really find is we really have to teach entrepreneurialism as a part of actor training, and that from day one, it's about learning how to be succinct, how to communicate clearly, how to talk about your art, how to talk to people about what it is that you're doing.
Well, you have to be organized, don't you? I mean, you have to hear and here and whatever you're doing. Whoops, you know, I mean, you got to be organized, right? And
so it's a challenge. It really is. But
I don't know what the answer. I think these are, like I say, we're at a crossroads for the arts. You know, how do we keep this sense of, you know, regimen and, you know, the going into the monastery, you know, being the monk, but yet living, you know, because you're right. You know, people today, young kids today don't have time like we did. They don't have the time to disappear into the forest, you know, because we could find a way to eat, but I don't know if they can find a way to eat if they disappear.
There's not the societal support, especially in the United States. So a student goes to college for 4 years, right, in the theater program. Honestly, out of those 4 years, how many hours are actually spent in theater classes? And then when they graduate, their family, their support system is assuming they're going to get, you know, a headshot and start auditioning for television. And so when they come out of, you know, 4 years of college and then say, I want to dedicate the next 5 years of my life to Margolis method or to, you know, it's like they have to be very, very strong individuals, because in the United States, if you tell people, hey, what are you doing now that you graduated? Oh, I'm working on my craft. That's not a good answer. Do you know what I mean? That's like,
but it should be. I mean, it should be that we come as artists, we need to figure out a way to continue to live and still pursue this love we have of creation.
Exactly.
And sometimes that means you're dividing life between work and art, and you're figuring out ways to do both at the same time.
So we've been trying to, by focusing on giving people teaching skill sets, that has been a way that a lot of the actors who have come to work and train with us are making good livings now. They're at universities, they're teaching at universities, or they've set up their own studios. And so teaching as a way of making a living, as opposed to I'm doing this job from 9 to 5 and then I'm going to go to the studio at night.
Well, it's a symbiosis, because the teaching forces you to think out your approach, your
Yeah.
what you do, and then the performance helps you to be a better teacher, because a good class is like a good performance.
Oh,
Really,
yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if that it's good to have a lot of teachers out there, because there are people who will take the class just for fun and for interest and to improve their own lives in some way, not necessarily that they have a performance career, but that the arts and performing, that's going to feed their soul.
Exactly. And so, like, there's lots of different ways to interact with us and what we have to offer. And so when we do like 1 to 3 week workshops, like shorter workshops, we've really made sure that we've created an ability to share information that's immediately usable to actors, that not everybody can come and study for 5 years or whatever it is, or a lifetime. That we need to be sure that we're also like, that I could go do a 1-day workshop at a university and leave those kids in a different place than they were when we started the workshop, you know? So I think that is really important.
Hey, Tony, how do you define what you guys do? If you had to, if you were writing a promo piece of material or some kind of trailer, how would you define, who are the Adaptors? What do you guys do? What's the art form?
I think I'm gonna have to pass that one on to Carrie.
No, this is you. You got to talk about this.
What we do, it's just
you got to keep the jacket on for me a little longer, right?
It's like a big visual poem, and we really try and work in a nonlinear way, but it all comes together in some kind of strange logic at the end. And so it's its own experience that, that takes you through a journey that involves your emotions and hopefully your intellect after the show, but not during.
So I like that phrase, a visual poem. I think that's, I've been thinking that my work are visual songs, like they're songs, it's all related to that, what you're talking about. That's
kind of like, you think the goal would be, when you see a really great piece of theater and you meet someone on the street, if you're telling them, oh, I saw this great play, and it's about this guy and he lost his job and then he met this person, and that's not the same as, I just saw this piece of theater and all I can tell you is you need to experience it.
Right? Oh yeah.
That what you're leaving them with is the sense of they've had this experience. It's not about the story. It's about the experience, that they're left with, and then they unravel the story for the rest of their lives.
I think, for me, what's a success is if somehow or another you might not remember details about the show, but something about it sticks to your bones. Years later, you're still thinking about the show, or that's for me when the show's a success. Like James, when you're mentioning that, you remember Autobahn, so
Yeah, I was thinking, that that's in my head forever. I don't remember the details. I just remember a sense of space and time that was so flexible, and so there were surprises coming from all angles.
Yeah,
and that's what resonates. It's not what it was about, even though I'm pretty sure it was about the modern world and and its difficulties. But yeah.
I was really curious what you said, Tony, about saying that it engages your intellect not during the show but after the show.
Yeah, that's where I think if you're watching a show and you're busy trying to think what's this all mean, it's not working. I think it works when afterwards, like, oh, that one moment was, yeah, I get it now. And afterwards,
But, yeah.
We say like, yeah.
I was gonna say, has your image of, or your I don't want to say description, but your sense of what you do, has it changed over the years? Or I mean, has the original inspiration remained, or have you adapted? Has the Adaptors been adapted over the years?
Keep adapting. Yeah.
Adapting, but I think we're adapting how to keep pursuing the original dream. Society changes and the politics change and the economy changes, and so the subject matter changes, and how we can get people, how we can finance what we're doing changes, but the goal to just blow people away.
Just want to blow people away. That's good. Yeah.
That's been our main mission.
That's our main mission. It's kind of like what we say all the time. This is just way too much work. So if your goal isn't to create the greatest piece of theater that ever existed and blow people away, why would you even why bother?
Yeah, it's not a job. It's not like an everyday job. It's like beyond that, It's
where did the name Adaptors come from? Is that the source of the name?
We were working. That's in Montreal. We started thinking of becoming like.
We were planning to head back to the United States.
And I came up. I usually come up with the good names, but this time Carrie did. I was coming up with hey, how about we're always changing? How about the Chameleons or something like that? And then Carrie goes, no, the Adaptors. And I go, yeah, the Adapters.
And we were also into multimedia there, so there was double plays with the idea was the adapters is that we adapt to things, but also that you need an adapter to connect
to the
one thing to another.
Yeah.
So the adapters became we're making the connection between us and the audience, and that's how it started.
Tell us some good stories about your touring life. Do you have any disaster stories or what I mean,
about all we have.
but also for a lot of young people who won't have that experience of what it's like to be a part of a company that tours, just a little bit of what's that like?
Well, one thing I could say is that Carrie has a way of selling shows before they're done, and so that really creates some interesting situations if the show is not quite ready by the time you get to the theater. But
we've had lots of crazy experiences. We touring through our very first tour through Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico.
Yeah, with Sigfrido Aguilar.
So, Sigfrido.
Yeah. So our very first tour, we had I think 14 people with us. None of them had ever left the country before.
What year was that? Because I was in those festivals.
1985, maybe.
Yeah, I might have been in the same festival you guys were in. Yeah.
Oh, right.
That's very possible.
Right, they have a big festival there. Yeah.
Audubon was a huge show, and all we had was cardboard boxes and touring cases, and from each show, one show to the other, we had no idea how we were getting from one place to the next.
Yeah.
But after one show, this little kind of van bussy thing pulls up, and we literally had to pack, I am not exaggerating, actors and props. Actors were passed in and shoved into little crevices.
One actor here now, give us a chair.
Okay, now an ironing board. Okay, and driving through Mexico. So we've done that whole kind of crazy thing. We've traveled.
Talk about a visual poem. That's Mexico, right? I mean, about
travel through the night to get to a theater, and you're totally exhausted. And a half hour before the opening is supposed to happen, the stage gets flooded from the smoke machine, and there's 3 feet of water all over the stage. And just we've been through every.
What about the other side of it? Is there a touring experience which was totally clinical? I remember touring in Switzerland, and the theater director was going to pay me at the train station the next day leaving town. And he said, I'll be there at 10 a.m. when the train leaves. So I'm standing by the train. It's 9:58. And I look, and he's walking really slowly down the platform. And, Swiss trains leave at 10. If it's going to leave at 10, it's going to leave at 10. And he's walking, and I'm going, he's walking pretty slow. It's 9:59. I get up into the doorway of the train car. I swear to God, the train starts pulling out, and he hands me the envelope with the money, right? So have you had any of these exquisite experiences where everything goes right? Because that's very rare, I think, in touring, so.
Yeah, I think ours have been very human, very.
Yeah, good.
Full of good laughs, definitely some really deep, solid cries, and but human. A band of crazies on the road together is a good time, you know.
What about the physical aspects of being a performer and being an artist? How have you had to adapt over the decades and physically, for example? Like, how do you keep yourself, ready?
Yeah, I like we're closer to 70 than 60 at this point, and
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm in about the best physical shape that I've been. I actually teach actor workouts. We just started a whole new thing 2 months ago called actor workouts, which is built on building strength, flexibility, vocal work, everything, but totally from the perspective of an actor. So everything's talking about, building stories and dynamic and breath. And I don't know.
What about you, Tony? How have you adapted or kept sharp? Because you still perform, correct? I mean, are you often still performing?
Whenever there's the opopportunity, we're now on an internet show, so it's more on the technical level. But when we're performing a longer run, that's scary because then you got to be in tip-top shape every day. So we did.
It's a little bit like being a boxer, right? You train for a fight. And then there's those moments between gigs where you start to kind of lose it, like I always thought it was like being a pro boxer, I have to start training but I got to keep training, stuff like that. So,
yeah, I think that teaching keeps you young forever because you're constantly, first of all, we spend a lot of our time with young people, so when you're teaching a lot and you're in universities and you're doing those kind of things, there's just a lot of young energy around you. And I think that makes a big, huge difference. And when you're teaching, your mind is always in that learning place, which is that definitely.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
That really feeds you to.
Yeah. You're looking for like the new way to try something or say something, or a student asks you a question in a different way that's ever been asked before. And you're like having these very juvenile, youthful experiences in your own body when you're like, wow, I never said that before. Like,
yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah, I get those.
Something years, and I've never actually, that was a really good, I never said that before. So,
yeah, I'm finding that now I'm saying like, why didn't I think like that before? Like suddenly all these things are coming and sometimes it's so simple too. Like, why didn't I talk about that before?
And it's often coming from the student. It's the student has a different perspective because they come from someplace else and they're much younger and they inspire your perspective to change.
Yeah. So we do this thing that we call spiral learning. That's at the foundation of what we do, which means in a classroom, you could have a company member who's been training for 18 years next to a young student who's there for the very first time. And that the spiral learning is they're both working on the exact same exercise, but they're working on the exercise at different levels of the spiral. And that one level really needs the other. So the beginning student has this huge advantage where they can steal so much from the mature artist. But the young artist keeps the mature artist honest and alive and new, exactly like what you're saying, Karen, because they ask the new question or they provoke something or they challenge you in a different way. So,
yeah, it's like a helix. Like I have model trains and I have these spiral helixes. The train goes up, but at the bottom you're aware of what's at the top, so that those younger students are at the bottom of the helix or the spiral. That's a great way to. So it sounds like teaching is really important to you. That have you always taught equally along with your work, your performance work?
Or is always, from the time we formed the Adaptors, there was a training. There were classes. The classes started first when we came back from the United States. When we came back from Omnibus, we came back to the United States. We opened a school. We taught for 2 years, and there was a group of about 14 students who had stuck out the whole thing. And it was like, okay, it's time to do something. And that's Autobahn came out of that first group of students. So there's always been, and I honestly, I could not imagine just teaching and not making art. not also making theater. And I could not imagine.
Because good teaching triggers good ideas. Good teaching will trigger your.
Every company shows come out of like a class. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
something that's happening.
Vice versa.
Well, it's so interesting in the dance world how taking class is so important. Like whoever you are, the dancers are always taking classes, not only to maintain their body, but just it keeps that edge of creativity on you.
James, does it feel hot in here to you?
Huh?
Does it feel hot?
Hey! Put it out!
Yes. Hot.
Mike, put it out! Put it out! Put it out! Oh my God! Oh no, it's time for rapid fire.
That's right. It's rapid fire time.
Thank you. Wow. So guys, this is what we're going to do. We'll take a little intermission here, but during the intermission, we're going to play rapid fire. So this is the way it's going to happen. So I'm going to call out some words and you're going to, through word association, you're going to give me a quick responses. Okay. And I think we'll try a visual response and an audio response at the same time. So, for example, if I say hands, who would like to give a word response to hands, Carrie or Tony? And then who would like to do some kind of gesture?
Feet.
Okay, like you have to choose. So who's going to do the visual and who's going to do the audio?
Oh, we can't just improvise that?
You could.
Sure.
You could.
Wait, does it have to be one or the other? I'm confused.
We want to hear both. We want to.
I was saying.
Here.
Yeah, I was saying if I say hands, one person would give a word reaction and one person would give a visual reaction at the same time, or you can improvise together.
Let's work
okay.
Together.
We'll improvise it.
Okay. All right. If it's too visual, we may do it again, just audio for our audio guests, but let's see what happens. Okay. Are you ready? You understand what we're going to do? I have this list. I'm going to call out a word and you're going to respond quickly. Okay. Off the top of your head. Are you ready? This is rapid fire. Okay. Here we go. Spotlight.
Me.
Hands.
Quiet.
Eyes.
Looking good, baby.
Yeah.
Fourth wall.
There ain't none.
Sweat.
That's his department.
Now.
Child.
Wait, what was that?
Child.
Me.
Elder.
Him.
Me.
Props.
Everywhere, everything. You got it.
Mask.
To be taken off.
Now.
Age.
Age.
Endless.
Endless. Ever going.
Failure.
Never.
Often.
Critic.
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 Critic. Self-analytical, not self-critical.
Show me a reaction, Tony. Show me a physical reaction. Critic. Good. Teacher.
Carrie.
Fame.
Unattainable.
Yeah.
Language.
French.
Spanish, useful.
Mime.
The foundation of all things.
Future.
Hopefully.
Now.
Here.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was rapid fire. That was beautiful. We had our own little comic moment with the internet doing crazy things. That's good enough for that, right? We don't need
that
to do
was
that
great.
again. That was great.
I enjoyed putting.
You guys know Jeff Hoyle, right? He was on fire during this section.
Yeah,
So.
sure.
people on the spot a little bit, but it's great to see you guys move around and express yourself. Tell us a little bit about the actual creative process of when you are creating a work. And I'm sure it's different when you have the ensemble or when you go into a university and you devise a piece, but where does it start? Does it start with a question or a prop or an idea?
Yeah, it basically starts with a question. So, for example, the bed experiment one was, if you were to make a nature documentary about the Homo sapien, what would that be? Or Vidpires was, we asked ourselves, Vidpires was about a coven of vampires, and it was, if you are what you eat, what would you be if you consumed pop culture for 100 years? Like, so we give ourselves a kind of a premise or a question that we start to pull apart and investigate, and we work from limitations. Like, we come in and we create a limitation of, if your characters could only do these things, like, where would we go? And we start to build from there. And honestly, we work the same way with students at a university that we work with the company. And it's, our job is about figuring out what limitations are going to inspire the actors and actually feed them and feed their creativity.
Do you both share in that process, or do you have different responsibilities between the two of you in this writing? Does somebody start work with the idea and then the other person finds the tools or develops the tools, like, or do you both share in all of it?
We work a lot with separating jobs. I like to just start improvising, and Carrie's directing, and then we'll start developing from there, and then we'll start, adding other elements, music or visuals. Yeah.
When we first started, we kind of did everything together. It's like 45 years later. And so we've really honed our skill sets. So generally, I direct and lead and run the rehearsals. Conceptually, behind the scenes, we're always interacting and working conceptually together. And then Tony's really developed his composing and multimedia skills. So we've figured out how to really hone our specialties.
Now, I have a question. So as one myself who's been in relationships with fellow artists, I've been married a couple of times to fellow performers. How do you guys work through that process of being in a relationship? And then how does that work for you in the creative process? And then what are the dangers, and how do you avoid the pitfalls, or how do you work through those conflicts that inevitably happen, as I know, having that experience myself?
I think what we're just saying, just the separation, not being, earlier on, I think we were competing more, with each other. And then I think we started to settle into, ways of working together without having to do that.
Did you have a summit meeting? I mean, I don't want to get too personal. Did you have a summit meeting about that at one point in your life? Was there a point where war was happening? You had to come to the peace table, or how did you work that out?
I think that our specialties are our individual passions. So it's like, I don't think Tony loves directing. Like, I don't think Tony loves showing up into a studio full of actors and, doing that. That impassions me. Do you know what I mean? Teaching impassions me, doesn't impassion him in the same way.
Yeah.
But he can sit all night long. Like, he can sit all night long and just get into an incredible piece of music or a multimedia thing. Like, I don't have the vision or the patience for. So I think we've been lucky that way, that we're not fighting over the same heartstrings,
So you trust each other. You leave certain things to the other. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, cool.
You're very, very fortunate to have such a long-lived partnership.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to one of the things that you said, Carrie, about limitations, because that to me is very interesting. You think when in the creative process, everything is wide open, you could do anything, but in actuality, when you have limitations, that really is the thing that sparks creativity.
Right. So, like, for example, if every character could do everything, there would only be one character, right? So when we say so-and-so is acting out of character, we're saying that we understand that person to be a set of limitations. And so everything about, in Margolis method, as we're training the actor, everything is built off of limitations. So we start off, it's like, what stories can I tell if I just stay vertical? You know, what stories can I tell if I'm just giving all the time and my character never takes? So, like, for example, and so then the more you work that way, you start to see the poetry and the power and the freeness of limitations. And then you start to understand artistically when it's time to break a limitation. So, like, by scene 3, we need to break this limitation. Like, this limitation isn't servicing us anymore. And
are you developing new skills, or are you honing the standards? No, that's the bad word, standard, but the gifts that you've developed through training or naturally, or are you finding new things?
Every show, it's really interesting because every show requires us and the ensemble to build some new skill set. So, like, for example, it was, a while ago, but when we did the bed experiment, for example, it required tremendous upper body strength. If you're thinking that you're doing this play on a bed and like just we had to completely change our physicality, like, to get through that show. Every performance requires like a different kind of comedic thing that we've never tried before, or so. Again, I think that's what keeps you young too. Is that?
Do you ever look at old videos of your work and say, "Wow, I did that," or "Well, I'm not going to do that anymore"? And then does that ever happen? Yeah.
I think I'm always kind of more amazed at how bad the video quality is.
I remember you, Tony, probably from Audubon, in a white coat. Am I wrong? There was somehow I remember you wearing a lot of white in this kind of elegant, athletic way.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably some of his solo things from some of the solo shows in the past. I don't know if you'd want to try to do some of those things now.
How does one adapt? Here's my question from before. Like, I feel that, there's an hourglass, or there's, like, let's say, here's your physical self when you're younger, and here's your mental self, and there's a volume of sand. And as you go through life, the physical starts to fall away, but the mental continues. So the volume is equal. So at this point in our lives, our mental capacities are up here and the physical might be here, but the balance is still there. Do you have any philosophy about that, about aging and how you continue to grow?
Yeah. So like, I think what makes something really powerful is finding the complexity within a really simple idea, right? When the ideas get really complicated, we lose our audience. When the idea is simple, it's about the complexity that we give to that. So for me, the physicality of the actor is about finding like really deep specificity and complexity within simple things. And that's something my instrument at whatever age, when I'm 90, I'll be all the more specific. Do you know what I mean? And all the more be able to find all the more complexity with what I'm doing. So my vision is, it's not about doing like 5 backflips right now. Like that's, but it's about exhaling in this way where like your demeanor and the quality of the breath and the look in your eye and everything that's happening is so specific.
Yeah, it's like you're throwing stuff away to find more, actually. I think that's what the older artists, the experienced artists, you eliminate, but at the same time, you're finding much more riches inside.
There's other people who can do 5 backflips right now, you know what I mean? So it's
right.
our goal is to keep digging deeper and deeper, into
because if I said, I used to do backflips, but if I'm on, this gave me an idea. If I say I'm here and I go to the audience, I just did a backflip, I bet I'd get a laugh. I bet I'd get a lot of love from the audience if I, as a 74-year-old, I said that. Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you guys have? Let me just ask this question. What about legacy? We're talking about aging and holding on to process. How do you guys feel about legacy? Of your legacy or the adapters or anything in that respect?
Yeah.
Tony, answer. Yeah.
We're trying to think right now about getting all of our stuff archived properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big job because we've done so much, but we're in the process of doing that now. Yeah.
We have thousands of videotapes, shows that were shot from 50 angles with 20 cameras and have never been edited together. So that's definitely,
that's a nice. They have all that. I just put a lot of my stuff on hard drives, from DVDs. But it's like, oh my God, there's so much. What do I do with it all?
Hundreds, and it's like VHS, 3/4, beta, so. We're actually gearing up to do like a major fundraiser and a major project of digitizing all of our footage and trying to save as much of it as we can.
Do you guys have a board of directors? Do you have people that are good advisors for financial sources and things?
Our board of directors is really small. We've gone through, the company has gone through having big staff, big board of directors, doing all of that, to shrinking down to Carrie and Tony are the staff and 4 people, board of directors. And I think the reason why we're still together and why the Adapters still exist is flexibility, adaptability in the sense of when to shrink and when to grow. And now we're a completely different kind of organization where our core people live, some of them thousands of miles away. So it's we're all over the country now, and we still figure out how to come together. And this.
Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want the group to be or yourselves to be in 10 years?
I hope that within 10 years, it's the same hope that if you'd asked me this 40 years ago, that, you know what I mean? That we're at a place where the artist can fully invest into the creation of art. I think that's always our goal is to honor the artists that we live with, to be able to pay them more, to be able to offer them more opportunities, and to be able to reach more people. It's that's the lifelong goal.
And that's kind of also your legacy, that you've reached out to in your teaching and your performing and in forming these ensembles, that you've left a legacy of people and what they're going to do too. And it's very impressive.
The certification program assures that there's artists out there that are deeply, understand the work at a deep level. We've also had we've been running an online training program now for almost a decade. So there's hundreds of hours of documented aspects of the training and the research that we do. So, but we have shows that were videotaped that we've never actually seen, you know what I mean? Because it's you finish that show and you're on to writing the next one.
Right.
You never have the time or the money to edit the last show. So that is a big, huge project for us.
This is a wonderful opportunity for us to help promote that. So when you've got that archive that people can connect to you guys and see the work and be inspired by it and to learn more.
Yeah. So we're working now. By the time that this is released, I'm sure it will be ready. The new Adaptors website, it's mbadapters.org. And that has a lot of archival stuff on it, where it really takes each show and you can really look at each show and see photographs and video excerpts from.
Yeah. What advice would you give to young artists today? you know, we were talking a little earlier about how difficult it is today as opposed to when we were younger. But what would you say to a young artist today?
Really quick, like each of you give like a 1-sentence advice to a young artist.
Skill set, skill set, skill set, skill set. Now more than ever. The more skill you have, the more opportunities you have, and you never have to wait for anybody to hire you. You don't have to wait for somebody else. You can just go out and make your own thing, but you need the skill set to do it.
And where do you learn that as a physical theater artist?
You come to Margolis Method Center.
What about you, Tony? What advice would you give to a young artist?
I'd say put down your phone and start doing some exercise.
Yeah. This thing is the world of the younger generation, isn't it? I mean, this is
it really is.
Yeah.
You know, my thing is, if you keep looking at this long enough, you'll never see the rattlesnake that's going to bite you. So, like, just observation and survival skills are going to suffer if you keep looking at these screens. You know.
Yeah.
You know, as we're looking at the screen right now.
Really actually concentrate and focus. You know.
Actually concentrate and focus.
Yeah, but there is that other thing that we've been talking about, using this method of communicating to connect to you and for me and James to be doing this project.
Yeah.
There is that sort of, the screen here is really good. I mean, and when we think about the past year and the pandemic, is there some specific little bit that you think that you've learned, that what has this moment of pause taught you anything?
Well, I was devastated when everything had to close down. And now, honestly, the ability to teach virtually right now, I mean, I wouldn't want it to ever completely replace teaching live. There's nothing like that. But the ability to teach virtually, I have been able to meet and work with so many artists that I would never have the opportunity. And it's not elitist. So there's so many artists who can't afford to come to the center and train or take a month off, who can drop in every Monday night for 2 hours. And it has been expansive. It has been fantastic. It has been inspiring, and we will always keep a virtual side to what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's the new combination of the virtual and the live. I know both of you guys have worked, you both taught and did work at the University of Minnesota for several years. What are your feelings about, you know, we touched upon this earlier, about drama training, drama departments today, you know, in this age now, like the young kid going to a drama department and studying theater, and then what happens? I mean, how do you feel about that as opposed to maybe something like the Margolis Method Center, or, you know, like what, you know, how is that obsolete? And I'm starting to think drama departments are obsolete now. I mean, we probably were in the golden age of, you know, theater training in schools, but it's changing now. And so what are your feelings about that?
Well, I think there's two things. One, the structure of a university teaching theater has something that really needs to be acknowledged, which is in the morning, you have these students and you're trying to have them be vulnerable and learn and take risks. But then at night, they're supposed to be in a performance and they're supposed to be brilliant. And so because they're supposed to be in a show at night and be brilliant, it makes them close down in the morning. And they're afraid to be vulnerable, and they're afraid to admit that they don't know something because they somehow have to be professional in the evening.
Yeah, they're being judged in the evening, right? Their reputation is on the line, you know, like, and they're supposed prematurely.
Prematurely,
exactly,
they're supposed to be brilliant. And so when I go to universities, the first thing I do is I shut the door and I say, look, this is crazy. Let's just acknowledge it. And so for right now, while we're in this room together, let's just forget about that performance tonight and let's just take advantage of trying to be as vulnerable as we possibly can.
Yeah. Also, they're required to play 80-year-old people, maybe, or, you know, they're required to do roles that aren't really speaking to them, you know. And I mean, you can learn something from that, but in the end, where's that deeper understanding? Where does that come from? You know.
And universities should be the hotbed for exploration, right? So
Yeah.
like Broadway should be looking at universities for like, what's happening, what's new. But often universities are like looking at Broadway and like imitating Broadway shows. And so I think I think little by little universities are starting to open up now and starting to realize that they need to be the generative force, right?
It's this whole thing that's going on forever about, is it about process or is it about product? And this whole idea of process, that's like a lifelong learning. You're always adding to what you know. It's not, and the products might help you work and experiment with that, but the process is and to me, that's the part that's really fun too, is the process of
well, the product should always be the result of a heartfelt process, right? And so again, it's artificial when somebody else is picking shows and deciding whether you get to be in it or not. You know what I mean? It's just a different system than the one that we come from, like where we make something because it's in our hearts, we need to make it, and we're in it because we're making it. And
when you used to be able to sit in an airplane and next to somebody, right? And you start talking and you introduce yourself and they ask you what you do, what would you say to them? If you're meeting somebody for the first time and they say, well, what do you do, Carrie? Or what do you, Tony? How do you describe yourself? What's the answer you give?
And how do you do it in just a few words?
Yeah.
I'm a plumber, so I have to get into it.
Seriously?
No.
Why not? How do you guys introduce yourselves? We're like directors. We have a theater company. We're actors. What do you say to people?
Theater artist.
Theater artist.
Generator, director, actor, theater artist.
Of all the places that you've gone in the world that your work took you, what's your favorite place? Off the top of your head, favorite place?
Barcelona.
We've spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Was that for you too, Carrie, Barcelona, or do you have another spot?
We've been going there for like 12, 14 years every year. So it's.
Do you guys teach workshops there?
Yeah,
and perform?
We've created work there. We have a following of artists there. And
yeah, it's a great city.
Second home to us. Yeah.
Wow.
So we just have one last question. This is our favorite question. This is James's favorite question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Tony first. What do you want to be when you grow up?
House painter. That's the one thing I can do really good.
Carrie, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be the same thing I wanted to be when I was 3 years old.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
I want to be.
Yeah, I'm with Tony. I wanted to be a Greyhound bus driver at some point, or a train engineer. So
actually, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a frogman for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
This has been just a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for all your stories and inspiration.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. And as we said, we're doing this to archive and to record the great artists that are in the world today. And you're part of our season number 1,
right.
Of a group of interviews. And we're so happy that you were able to do this. And thank you very much, Carrie and Tony.
I appreciate
really
you guys
enjoyed it.
putting
Thank you.
the effort out.
Yeah.
Make this all happen. Thanks.
Great.